Okay, so let's talk more stretching, right? If I want to really improve my hip mobility, getting rid of my feet is a really great way to do it. So I can get into half kneel. For me to be able to hinge and move at that hip, I need to be able to shift in and out of that pelvis, and I need to reach over my head and around that hip, meaning that front of my hip needs to be nice and mobile for me to throw and hit well and to be able to hinge the way she wanted us to in a lot of those drills. So I have a couple different ways I can do this. I can be one leg down, so my right leg's down, my left leg's forward. If I keep my legs in line, meaning my left leg is right in front of my right leg, I can reach hands up over my head so I can use my bat. I'm gonna shift back, reach back, shift back, reach back. If we look at that from the side, as I'm shifting forward and reaching back, you should be able to create a long C-shaped line. We shouldn't get a lot of shear through your low back. So I should feel that stretch on the front of my thigh, the front of my belly, the front of my rib cage, but I should not have knee pain. I should not have low back pain. So I can use my softball bat. I can use a piece of PVC pipe, feet in a line, shift and reach, shift and reach. If you want a more aggressive stretch, we put this right underneath your butt cheek. And so now when I shift forward, I pull forward. So I'm pulling this way. And so as I pull forward, I'm driving the most aggressive part of the stretch through the very front of that hip. I shift and pull, shift and pull. If you are a pitcher, I strongly recommend doing that stretch because it can make a big difference in how high you can reach in your arm circle, and that can improve velocity when you pitch. Okay, so I can do forward, but now I need to work on tipping to the side, right? Because we want that pelvis to be able to shift outside of that knee. So if I have 1 foot forward, 1 foot sideways, I'm gonna tip to the side, and then I'm also gonna rotate away. Okay, so when I rotate away, I'm stretching this side, but I can also be stretching the butt of that left leg. So I can be forward and I can rotate away if I use my bat or my stick and I use this arm and I push that shoulder around the corner. Now I'm stretching pec, oblique, hip flexor, the whole kit and caboodle, and my left butt. So I'm gonna use my bat or my stick. I'm gonna reach around the corner. I'm gonna reach around the corner. I can also switch gears and be more focused on that left butt. I can hold on to this left knee, pull it towards my belly button, and I can rotate and reach to the left. And that helps stretch out that hip like we did on those other exercises. When we get to our right leg, okay, for me to be able to throw a ball appropriately, right? We're talking about rotating around, pelvis is going this way, trunk is going this way, so I'm winding up that rubber band to throw. So that left leg being down, right leg being up, this is important again. Tipping to the side is important again. And then that big rotational reach while I shift forward and come back. Forward and come back. Same thing. I am not holding this for any length of time. I get to the end of the range of motion and I get back off and I move in and out of it 5 or 10 times and then we're done. So I've got the front side. She had everybody do a drill where we had our left leg out and you leaned over the side and we worked on throwing from different arm slots, right? We had a lot of girls who had a really hard time with that. Part of that is a mobility situation, okay? So as I tip to the side over that leg so that I've got my arm in a good throwing slot and I'm using trunk and shoulder to unravel, my pelvis has to be able to slide over that leg. There's got to be a give to that groin. If this is really tight or your SI joint is really tight, we get jammed there and your body won't let it happen. So now instead, our body's gonna go path of least resistance and I'm gonna start doing stupid stuff with my arm. She said to throw the whole you can't sidearm philosophy out the window. That's not 1,000% correct. You are allowed, if I am throwing, Okay, like good throwing posture. This is my throw, this is my throw, this is my throw. This is healthy for my shoulder, my elbow, and my low back. When she has you tip, you are still in the same slot. So that's why it's healthy. If you can't tip and instead my arm is down here and I'm slinging it, now I have more stress on the inside of my elbow and more upper body stress as well. Injury wise, women, ladies, we are stronger in our butts. Okay, so rib cage to thigh, that pelvis and our hips do 90% of our activity in sports. We need our lower body to function. Upper body, we are not naturally strong. Our center of mass is in our hips. Men, their center of mass is in their shoulders. So they can get away with sidearm throws in baseball because they're physically more endowed with lots of muscle bulk to support that. Women, we are not. We tend to be bendier and have more joint mobility in our shoulders and elbows and hands. So we do not want to put them in positions where we are not supported by muscle. So we need to be able to tip over. So my ability to tip over is based on my adductor or my groin mobility. So if it is comfortable, you can get down on one knee, this leg out. I can use my bat or my stick, or I can use the heel of my hand. If I tip to the side, and I'm pushing down with this hand, I can tip, and basically we're trying to get our pelvis to slide around this leg. So now I can do all the angles she talked about. So I'm gonna lean forward and tip to the left, forward, come back over the top of it, lean back, and every single time I'm pushing down here, or I'm taking that bony pelvis and I'm tipping it towards that leg, you should feel a huge stretch here. As you are up taller, there's a big stretch here. It should never feel pinchy. Sometimes what needs to happen, because I don't have enough room or enough joint mobility, you may have to stand up and kick that leg up on something and do the same thing. Okay, so I'm gonna do right leg down, left leg out. The leg you are stretching, okay, is the leg that's out. Then I can go do the other one. Okay, so then you can check yourself. Can I tip over low enough? She talked about our fingers grazing the ground when we throw. Can you tip, meaning my spine is straight and I can reach the ground? Or are you still having a hard time? When you go, do you feel your hips hinge, meaning I'm sliding through here, or does this position create a great deal of low back stress? It can't pinch in your hip, it can't be low back stress. So part of that is I need to improve that mobility. Part of that is I have to strengthen that core to be able to manage that position. Because this position is easy compared to softball. So if I can't do this by myself, just being boring here on my deck, I am never going to be able to do it in a game, because game, I am on the run, and this is typically a reach, and it's an off foot throw, meaning I'm throwing off of my right foot. Okay, if you're a third baseman, if you're a shortstop, if you're a pitcher, this is a throw we need to be able to make based on the angle of play. So I can work on my strength as long as this doesn't hurt, it doesn't feel pinchy, doesn't feel stuck in my hip or my back. I can literally now, on my right leg, tip over the top, reach forward as far as I can, reach to the side as far as I can, and reach overhead as far as I can. And that's going to work belly, hip, and groin as far as strength. If I keep my hands in my body, in my base of support, it's a lot less work than if I bring arm drivers. You're adding more mass and momentum, so it makes the exercise harder. So when you are starting out, I would do my tips with my hands at my pelvis. Then I can be shorthand reach. Then I can be long arm reach. And if that gets too easy, now I can put something in my hand. I can have a glove, I can have a 1 pound weight, I can do something to increase the stress to the situation. Stress meaning it's harder work, not stress meaning it's doing too much at my hip, okay? So I need to be able to slide over that, but a good way to start practicing for those off foot throws and the angle she talked about where I'm throwing here is to do it in half kneel and make sure that we have hip mobility and belly strength to be able to do it. Okay, there are standing versions of both of those exercises when we're trying to improve hip mobility. Now, the upside to a standing version is it is less aggressive to stretching those muscles, because when I stand, now my body can try to find more mobility through my knee and through my ankle. So I'm getting a less intense stretch in my hips, but sometimes that's what I need to start out with, or given the playing surface, that's sometimes what I need to do. So if we're on a soggy, disgusting field and you don't want to go down on a knee, I can go in the dugout or I can go up against the outfield fence and use the fence to put my foot up and do these stretches in a standing position so that I still get the same mobility without destroying my white uniform. So from a standing position, that first stretch that we talked about, that hip flexor stretch, I face the fence, put my foot up on the railing, and I shift forward. If I just shift forward, it's the least aggressive stretch. If I reach up over my head, that's more aggressive. And then if I turn my toe in, that's even more aggressive. Okay, aggressive meaning it stretches more, not that we're pinching. Then same concept, okay, foot back, leg up. Now I have to tip away and rotate away. If you find yourself falling all the time when you're tipping away, that tells me your glute med isn't very strong. And again, that's okay. We spend a lot of our day in a position that doesn't make it fire, so it doesn't have to work. If it doesn't have to work, it's not strong. Women, we don't have a very strong one in the first place because our hips sit wider than our knees. It doesn't mean we're fatter, it means our hips sit wider than our knees. So the angle that this muscle has to work through on women is much different than it is in men. Also, women tend to be more mobile. Okay, so we have more joint mobility, so I can cheat and not use this muscle as much. So if you find that when we're trying to stand on one foot, you're having a really hard time with that, then just know as we work towards some of this new fielding stuff where we're asking you to stack and get there, that stack is going to be hard, not because you don't know how to do it, not because you're not listening, but because you lack enough hip strength to be able to stabilize that position while you draw to throw, and it will take time. If we look at any strengthening program, it's going to take from the day you start. So if you started all these exercises today and you did them 3 times a week, in 3 weeks, if you're a female, you will notice a difference. You will notice a difference in as little as 5 to 7 days from a motor learning perspective, meaning our body figures out how to fire this and how to do things. If we look at the girls who tested out on their throwing power on Saturday and Sunday, there was a improvement in their throwing power from the first test to the second, not because they suddenly got stronger, but because their body figured out how do I load and then I throw better. So part of this is I'm teaching you how to move. Okay, so that was the front side of my hip. If we look at that groin, okay, so remember, for us to be able to make that off foot throw or that sidearm look and throw, I need to be able to move through my groin. So I can do the same thing. I can put my foot up at a 45-degree angle, so my feet are 45-degree angled out from each other, and I can shift forward. I get a stretch on this side and this side. I have 2 ways to make it a bigger stretch. I can shift and I can push down and in with my right hand, or I can pull my leg out with my left elbow, or if everything's stretchy, I can do both at the same time. Okay, if we look at our catchers, I am begging you, this is the homework I have to do. The half kneel one where we tipped sideways, standing where we're driving in this diagonal, you guys having really good hamstring and groin mobility is essential to being able to drop and then pop to be able to throw. So being able to shift into both of those, into the inside of both of those hips, is going to make you much more powerful when you're trying to throw down and decrease the amount of stress we have on your low back and your hip. So like with all of the stretches, I'm shifting in and out of it. No pinch, no pain, no increased stress in my knee joint, no increased stress in my ankle, no increased stress in my low back. But I'm shifting in and out of it 5 or 10 times, and then you walk away. So if you're somebody who you start this and you're like, oh my God, I can't move, you can get better in a week. If you do these for me every day for a week, you will notice a giant difference. Once you get through the learning phase, right? So if it was me and I wanted to be a phenomenal softball player this fall, I would start doing this stuff today. And I would do it once or twice a day for the next 7 days. And then once we get past that 7 days, because now your body knows what it's supposed to do, you can get away with doing it every other day, or you do it every other day, or if we have a game or we have practice, I would strongly encourage you to do this stuff before you head out the door. Now, we're going to be doing warm-ups as a whole group focused on a lot of this stuff, but again, we are trying to overcome the tightness and the weakness you get from sitting in school all day. So it takes more than 2.5 hour practices a week to make a big dent in this. If you work outside for me, we're going to get better faster.